Michelle Schumann, and I'm the Artistic Director of the Austin Chamber Music Center. I'm here with Festival Focus, and I'm very happy to have Mark Kaplan and Yael Weiss from the Kaplan Weiss Newman Piano Trio here with us.
Actually, Weiss Kaplan Newman.
Okay, all right, very good.
And you said so many notes, you know, we always come first, so.
Yeah, I know it. I know the pianist deserves to come first for sure.
There's a famous story actually about who is it, Heifetz and Rubinstein and Pedagorsky. Well, you can tell because you obviously know better.
Oh no, please go ahead. Especially if you're playing on any accents.
So they played trios together for many years, and Heifetz said that he wanted it to be called Heifetz, Rubinstein, Pedagorsky, and Rubinstein said, no, the pianist must come first, and even if I were playing in a trio with God, it would be Rubinstein, God, Pedagorsky.
No ego there, right?
No, not at all.
Well, I'm really excited that you guys are coming to play the festival this summer. I've wanted to have the trio for some time. Of course, I've known Clancy for many years now. We've played together, and he's always told me about the trio. So I'm so glad that it could work out for this summer for you to come to the festival.
We're very excited about it.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, the three of you each have fantastic solo careers. I know, Mark, you've played with orchestras all around the world with New York Phil and LA Phil and Berlin Phil. Yael, you won the Kosciuszko competition, and you're a Naumburg Prize winner. And Clancy as well plays around the world. He's a Naumburg Prize winner and also an Avery Prize, Avery Career Avery Fisher, thank you, Career Prize winner. That's also a mouthful. Tell me about how you came to put together the piano trio and why chamber music is so important to you within your careers.
Should I start?
You start.
Well, for me as a pianist, I always felt that chamber music is a very natural extension of the piano repertoire. So a very obvious example, if one is studying Beethoven's piano sonatas, the piano trios, we are playing actually the very first one to start our program in Austin. The first piano trios are actually piano pieces, really. They were Opus 1, they were Beethoven's way of introducing himself to the public as a pianist. And there wasn't that much of a difference between a piano trio and a piano sonata for him at the time. Those distinctions these days are very clear, and we put this clear lines in between things, but actually it's really one kind of music making. And I feel that to understand the works of the great masters, whether it's Schumann, your namesake, Beethoven, Schubert, Brahms, any of the great composers, it's absolutely necessary for a pianist to study not only the solo repertoire, but to understand and have that perspective of the chamber music repertoire as well.
Yeah, actually, slight diversion here, but Beethoven was actually the person who started taking piano trios away from being piano sonatas, because before that, then Haydn, the piano trios really are piano sonatas, and Beethoven started, giving a little more to do, to the violin and the cello, but they are for sure predominantly piano pieces.
Yeah.
But back to your question. Well, I don't know. I've always played chamber music, and for me, the piano trio is the natural choice because I do a lot of solo concerts, and I'm also teaching. And if you're a string quartet player, I mean that's the kind of chamber music medium for a violinist. But if you're a string quartet player, that becomes like another marriage or something. I mean, it's such an intense thing that's why we have piano trios composed of soloists. You don't really have string quartets composed of soloists. So I played piano trios for just years and years, and I continue to do it because the repertoire is so great, and I love doing it.
Yeah. And speaking of a marriage, you two, of course, are married And actually, this was completely unplanned, but in my festival, I have two other groups that are comprised of married couples as well. And for the other two groups, they are duos. So Richard Stoltzman is playing with his wife, Mika Stoltzman, and there's a wonderful duo, the Cavatina duo, which is a husband-wife team of guitar and flute. But with you, you are a trio, of course. So tell me about the dynamic of bringing your marriage into a trio, sort of inviting another person into that chamber music group. And does that sort of interplay in that at all?
Well,
or maybe I should ask Clancy that question.
Probably. I think there are a lot of groups, as you said, with members who are married, and also piano trios, or also string quartets. I think it's a separate thing. We do actually occasionally play as a duo together. Mostly actually our work together though is for the trio, and we keep it rather independent, or we try to. I mean, I can't say that it always is. Obviously, we know each other quite well.
Pretty well.
But the musical relationship is something that has a little bit of a different color than the personal, I think, relationship.
Also, I mean, I think whenever you have a married couple especially in a trio where just three people, then it takes a little bit of conscious planning. So, like when we send, if there's an email from our manager asking, "Are you guys free for this, or do you want to do such and such?" We all reply separately. And it's I think it's simpler that way, and it's better.
Mm-hmm. And what about in rehearsals? Do you ever have to be conscious about making sure that you're not like sort of being a team like 2 against 1, or does that even come into play at all?
I think the word "we" is something we don't use. So there is no "we."
The "we" word.
The "we" word. I think that helps a lot.
The other thing is that in this particular case, then since Clancy and I are string players, when there is a "we," then it's very natural for it to be the strings, because it's we often are playing same kind of material, and composers often will like kind of make a dichotomy between the piano and the strings.
Right. Yes, and of course you have to come into agreement with certain things with bowing and color, and so that does make sense.
Not to mention intonation. We can never blame Yael if it's out of tune. We can blame the piano tuner, and we often do.
And many times, if something is out of tune, it turns out to be the piano.
Yeah, so. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. You can't hide from that at all, can you?
There's nothing I can do about it.
Clancy has often told me how impressed he is with the trio and how meticulous you all are when you come to a score and how you rehearse together. Can you tell me about your approach to, for instance, let's say with Beethoven Opus 1 No. 1, which you'll be performing on the program. How do you come to that score both separately and then in rehearsal?
Well, I think you could tell already from what Yael said about Opus 1 No. 1 that there's a good kind of historical consciousness that enters before even like playing a note. And I mean, speaking for myself, then I'd say I'm very concerned about the composer's wishes and what's there, and getting the best possible information about that. And then, on the other hand, I feel that in the end you have to make a performance that you're convinced by. And if there's, I mean, a lot of my students will say, "What do you do if there's a crescendo in the score and you feel it should start, 2 bars earlier, but it's Beethoven, what are you going to do? And do you play it the way that you feel it? Do you play it the way that it's in the score?" And my answer to that is that actually that's a very exciting situation, because if there's something you see in the score that's not the way you feel it, it's like a message. It means that there's something about the way you're feeling it that you have not completely understood what those little black marks on the page mean. And that's not bad. That means that's further grounds for work and for study and for cultivating how you feel it. And that being said, then at the moment you play it, you have to play it the way you feel it, or it won't be convincing.
Right.
Well, I since we're sitting here, I'm going to just grab something from my piano here behind, which might help answering your question here. So, as it happens, I'm very busy these days with the 32 Beethoven piano sonatas.
Great.
Since you asked about Beethoven, our approach to studying the score, I have a lot of these on my piano. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, the manuscript.
So I have a lot of
wonderful. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we do not have the Opus 1 trios, but one for me, I think one can learn a lot from looking at those facsimile editions of Beethoven whenever they're available. This particular case is the Waldstein Sonata. It's beautiful there, and I've been very busy looking through these books and studying Beethoven's intentions through his handwriting, which I find absolutely fascinating. And it's not easy to read, obviously.
No.
Sometimes it's incredible to think that during his time, this is how people read the music. People like Czerny, of course, is a very well-known first interpreter of Beethoven's music. This is the music that he read from. Those are the kind of scores that he read from, which are kind of incredible.
Scribbly things.
Yes. Yeah, it's a mess, right?
And in the case of Opus 1 number 1, all three of the Opus 1 trios, the kind of energy that one finds in those pieces. Beethoven, those are his first works that he felt comfortable enough to publish. He's a young man in Vienna and presenting himself to the world as a composer and as a pianist. And I just find that the energy and the confidence that's in this music is absolutely incredible. And you can see the power behind the music, just even looking at the handwriting, And I love just trying to connect to that kind of underlying compositional energy that gets a composer to create something like that.
We should probably add that as a personal footnote, when we got married, well,
I know it's right. Yes.
Well, lots of people when they get married, they quote, register at Bloomingdale's or something for China patterns and things. Well, we registered, if you can use that word, at a kind of very specialty store that sells these music manuscripts. We gave them a list of things that we were interested in, and we passed that list on to our guests, and we.
So we don't have a toaster, but we have a fantastic library of beautiful facsimile editions of manuscripts. Wonderful.
That's great. When I got married, we had a piano fund, so we just asked people to put into the piano fund, and we bought a Steinway piano. And actually, on another note, Clancy just got married last summer, maybe the summer before, and he played for his wife walking down the aisle. So musicians do interesting things at their own weddings.
That's right.
So that's great. I think that's such an important point with the manuscript as well, because when we look at music, when it's printed, it's just so black and white, and it seems like it's just almost sort of antiseptic in a way, just very bleak. So I love that idea of looking at the manuscript and looking at the composer's handwriting and kind of seeing the whimsy in it.
Yes, I think the printed score is really a kind of compromise that we have today. We absolutely have to see it as such. Yes. And look beyond it.
Also, it's interesting that even the in-between stage, which is early printed scores, right now there's such uniformity. I mean, basically every edition, then all the notes, the quarter note look exactly the same, the G clef looks exactly the same. But if you look back at early editions of Mozart and Beethoven and Bach, they're quite individual.
Yes, indeed. So, well, and I love again that you're beginning with Opus 1 number 1. It's going to be the first concert of our festival. So to open up with Opus 1 number 1, I think it's great. And so often the chamber music repertoire is dominated by string quartets. So I particularly love that Beethoven decided that his Opus 1 number 1 would be a piano trio. Again, to introduce himself to the world and to make a stand for the piano trio. So I just think that that's outstanding. You're also playing Lara Auerbach on the program, The Triptych. Can you tell us about this piece?
This is a piece that we just recorded. We have a new CD of, it's called an American Tour, which is an interesting name for it because actually there are 4 composers on the CD, and all of them are both American and something else. And the idea was to show different influences in the music that's being written these days here in America. Lara Auerbach was born in Russia. However, she's now American and she lives here. And this piece is a fantastic work. I think we all felt when we first looked at various pieces to consider them for recording, this was one that immediately grabbed us. Very powerful emotionally. It is a triptych in describing the actual visual opening of one. And it's interesting that I think she does not shy away from visual representations of music or thinking about something outside the notes themselves.
Well, and she's an artist, a visual artist herself.
She's her artist herself. And in fact, when we asked her for some program notes for the CD to include with the recording, she did not want to provide program notes, but she wanted to provide a visual image. So it's actually a kind of sculpture. It's a work that she's been making while composing this particular piece. So there's a kind of connection between them, which I found very interesting. We ended up writing program notes ourselves anyway. Yeah. But there is that fantastic image that we included as well.
Yeah. Well, one thing about this, by the way, is that the program we're playing then in Austin, all 3 works are written by very young composers.
Yes.
I think certainly under the age of 40, which for composers is pretty young. And I don't know that we normally do something like that. And we didn't particularly plan it. At least I didn't particularly plan it. And but it just turns out that way.
Well, and how do you think that informs a composition when a composer is sort of early on in their career? What do you think that brings to the music itself?
Well, I mean, I think that first of all, you can only talk about that in the case of composers like Beethoven, who we could see their whole career. We can't talk about it yet in the case of Auerbach. But
Dvorak is interesting.
And Dvorak is interesting because we do like the F minor trio, which is later one. I think. Well, I would say that most composers, when they're young, then there's a kind of raw genius that you can see, and it's not entirely raw. Obviously, something like Beethoven Opus 1 number 1 is so meticulously worked out and everything. Right. But then you can. It's interesting to look at that as a start and see, and it's overwhelming. You just say, "Wow, what a genius!" You know. And if I were living at that time, I think I would say, "Well, wow, what a genius!" Well, you know, where can he go from here? And now, of course, we know where he went from there. And yeah, composers get older and they sort of distill what they are.
The Dvorak is interesting too because actually the piece we will be playing is his first piano trio, which is it's not played very much at all.
It's not. Yeah. It's so beautiful. I mean, it's miraculous.
It's fantastic, really, right? Yes, and we play a lot. Of course, there's the Donkey, and we play a lot the F minor trio, which I think is really kind of the crowning achievement.
Yes.
Just on the same level as the piano quintet in terms of great chamber music works by Dvorak. But this first trio is really, really special and unique. And it has, I mean, not only fantastic melodies and rhythms, but the kind of writing and the balance between among the 3 instruments is really, really interesting. So it's young Dvorak, but he was a genius as well.
Well, and what I
was just going to say we had a concert yesterday and we played Beethoven's Spring Sonata, And there's something about this Dvorak trio that it could almost be called like the spring trio. It has that kind of, you know, inner energy that's just very gentle, but is there. You know?
Well, and I think with these early works of these composers, for me, what is most captivating is the fact that their voice is already there. You can already tell that it's Dvorak. You can tell, I mean, of course, again, we know this because we know what that voice is, but when you hear Beethoven Opus 1, number 1, you could never mistake that for any other composer. It is Beethoven at the core, and Dvorak, too, in every way, with the harmonies and the rhythms and the Czech influence. Right away we hear that voice, and I think that that's kind of what makes a great composer, is that they have that voice that can't be mistaken for anything else. I think about early Brahms and how it's so very Brahms, right in the beginning.
It's not early.
Yeah, because he completely, if you think of the Opus 8 trio, the first trio,
right, that's late too. Yes,
it's completely revised, and so actually it's late work, but yes,
and even the things that weren't revised and. That's after he had already burned 16 other attempts, you know.
Heavily edited there.
Yeah. But I think one thing for me with early Dvorak is that Dvorak as a composer, one of the things that we see about him and identify with him is that there are sort of rough edges. There are transitions that feel like, okay, did he really want to do that? And I think we tend to see that as a shortcoming, but actually, it's interesting to me that you see that in the late works as well as the early works. And I think he knew perfectly well how to write without that, but that this was part of what he considered to be himself in music, are these kind of rough edges.
And the onus is then on the performer to make that all kind of come together. And there's something very exciting about that, too.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for meeting with me today. It was wonderful to speak with both of you. We can't wait to have you open up the festival on July 12th. That's correct. 11th. You're on July 11th. Yes.
Maybe a little scare there.
No, yes. We're good. There's lots of concerts going on, but it's just going to be really, really terrific having the three of you here. Austin audiences know Clancy because he's played here in Austin several times, but I know that they're really excited to see the three of you together. So thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you very much.
We're looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Well, you take care and you have a great day, and we'll see you very soon.
Hey, thanks. Bye.
Thank you.